Imagine this. It's late at night. Your room is quiet, except for the sound of your own tears hitting the floor. You've been holding it in all day, trying to appear strong in front of everyone, but inside your heart is heavy. You pour it all out in prayer, your fears, your pain, your confusion. And for a moment, it feels like you're talking into the void. You whisper, "God, are you even listening?" You wonder if anyone sees the struggle, if anyone cares. And then suddenly a thought hits you. He does see. Every tear you've cried, every sigh you've let escape, every silent cry in the middle of the night, it hasn't gone unnoticed. God isn't just some distant observer. He's right there paying attention, listening, absorbing every detail of your pain. It's like sending a message to someone you love, and even though they don't reply immediately, you know they've read it, that they're thinking about it, and that they're already working on a response. Sometimes the response isn't instant. Sometimes his timing feels slow. But the beautiful truth is this: while you're doubting, while you're worrying, while you're wondering if anything will ever change, God is moving behind the scenes. He's taking all the pieces of your life, the broken moments, the unanswered prayers, the disappointments, and quietly working things out in ways you can't yet see. This is the God we serve, a God who doesn't miss a single moment of our suffering, a God who hears our cries long before we even know what to ask. And in that quiet assurance, you begin to feel a shift in your heart. You realize you don't have to carry the burden alone. Even in the darkest nights, He is there, listening, seeing, and already orchestrating your breakthrough. All you have to do is trust Him. Life feels overwhelming. We've all been there. Some days it feels like life is a storm you can't escape, and no matter how hard you try to hold it together, the waves keep crashing over you. Maybe it's the bills piling up faster than you can pay them, each notice adding another weight to your shoulders. Maybe it's a relationship that was supposed to be your safe place, suddenly feeling like a battlefield. Maybe it's your dreams, those big hopes and goals you've carried for years, put on hold, stuck in a place that feels out of reach. It's easy in moments like these to feel small, defeated, and exhausted. You wake up with the weight already pressing down on you, and by the time the day ends, you're drained, wondering how you're even going to make it to tomorrow. Your mind races with worries. What if this never changes? What if I fail? What if I've done something wrong? It's a heavy load, and honestly, it can feel unbearable. And in the middle of it, the quiet question creeps in. Does God even see this? Does He even care? When everything around you seems to be falling apart, when nothing is going the way you planned, it's natural to feel like your prayers are bouncing off the ceiling, unheard. You might think, I'm struggling alone. Maybe I'm invisible even to Him. But here's the truth. God does care. Even when the pressure feels too much, even when your hope is stretched thin, He sees it all. The bills, the heartbreak, the stalled dreams. He sees every detail. Sometimes just acknowledging that heaviness is the first step toward relief. You're not weak for feeling overwhelmed. You're human. And human life is filled with seasons like this. Moments when it feels like the world is too heavy, when your strength feels too small, and when you wish someone would just take the weight from your shoulders. Think about it like carrying a backpack that keeps getting heavier no matter how carefully you pack it. You strain, you stumble, and every step feels harder than the last. You might even consider putting it down, but you don't know if it's safe to do so. That's exactly what life's challenges can feel like. But God is there, standing beside you, offering His hands to take the weight, even when you're too exhausted to ask. It's also worth remembering that nobody else around you has the full picture of your life. Friends, family, co-workers, they might see pieces, but they don't know the whole story. You might feel isolated, but God isn't isolated from your pain. He's fully aware. Every tear, every anxious thought, every sleepless night, He notices, and He's not just a passive observer, He's actively involved, even when the timing of your relief doesn't match your schedule. So when life feels overwhelming, take a moment to breathe. Recognize that your feelings are valid, your struggles are real, and your pain isn't invisible. And then remember this: God sees it all, He knows it all, and He cares more deeply than you can imagine. You don't have to have all the answers, and you don't have to figure out everything on your own. His perspective is bigger than yours. His strength is greater than yours. And His timing, though it may feel delayed, is perfect. No matter how heavy life feels today, know this: you're not carrying it alone. God is right there with you, seeing, hearing, and preparing a way through the storm. Your moment of breakthrough might be closer than you think. All you have to do is keep holding on, keep believing, and remember that He cares. God sees your pain. Here's the truth: God sees it all. Every tear you've shed, every sigh that escapes your lips, every night you lie awake wondering how you'll make it through tomorrow. Nothing about your pain is hidden from Him. Sometimes it feels like no one understands the weight you're carrying. You might feel invisible, overlooked, or even forgotten. But the reality is that God notices every detail. He doesn't just glance at your struggles from a distance. He is intimately aware of them. Think about it this way. Imagine a parent watching over their child. The child might stumble, cry, or feel scared in the dark, and the parent notices every movement, every sound, every tear. Even when the child tries to hide, the parent sees. That's exactly how God watches over you. Your heartache, your disappointments, your deepest fears, He sees them all. Nothing escapes His attention, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant it may appear. Sometimes we think our pain is too private, too personal, or too messy for God to notice. Maybe you've carried shame, regrets, or mistakes thinking that you're too broken to be seen. But God doesn't measure your pain by its size or its complexity. He sees the heart behind the struggle. Every moment of doubt, every tearful prayer, every silent cry for help, He's fully aware. And the beauty of this is that His awareness is paired with His love. He doesn't just see your pain to judge or condemn. He sees it because He cares deeply, and He wants to bring healing, comfort, and hope. Imagine trying to explain your pain to a friend who doesn't really get it. Maybe they offer advice, maybe they nod, but they can't fully understand your experience. God, on the other hand, understands completely. He's been with you through every heartbreak, every betrayal, every disappointment. Even when people have let you down, even when the world seems blind to your struggles, God's eyes are on you. He knows exactly what it feels like to be in your shoes. And here's the powerful part. Because God sees your pain, He can act on it. Nothing goes unnoticed in His eyes. Sometimes the answer doesn't come immediately, but He is working behind the scenes, orchestrating circumstances, opening doors, and preparing solutions in ways you cannot yet see. Your pain is not wasted. Every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of sorrow is seen by a God who is not only aware, but also deeply involved in bringing you through it. Think about it like a coach in the gym. You might be struggling to lift a weight, thinking no one notices your effort, thinking you're failing. But the coach sees every muscle strain, every attempt, every ounce of determination, and because they see it, they adjust your plan, encourage you, and guide you towards success. That's what God does with your pain. He sees it, and He is working for your good, even when it feels like nothing is happening. So if you're feeling overlooked or invisible today, take comfort in this. God is watching. He notices every detail of your life. He sees the pain you try to hide, the tears you've wiped away, the prayers you whisper in secret. Nothing escapes His notice. And because He sees it, He will act in His perfect timing. You are not alone, and your pain is not ignored. Every tear is recorded, every cry is heard, and every moment of suffering is seen by a loving God who will bring you through stronger, wiser, and more resilient than before. Your pain has a witness, your struggle has a helper, and your heart has a God who sees, who cares, and who is already at work on your behalf. God hears your cry. And here's another truth that changes everything. Not only does God see your pain, He hears your cry. Every whispered prayer in the dark, every silent plea that escapes your heart, every desperate "God, help me," you've thought but never spoken aloud. He hears it. Sometimes it feels like your prayers vanish into the air, like they're bouncing off the ceiling and fading into nothing. But they are not unheard. God is listening intently. Think about it like this. Imagine you're at a crowded concert, shouting to someone across the room. It seems impossible for them to hear you over the noise, and you start to feel invisible. But then you realize they can hear every word you say, crystal clear, even above all the chaos around you. That's how God hears you. The noise of life, the distractions, the doubts, they don't drown him out. He hears each cry, each whisper, each plea, as if it were the only sound in the universe. Sometimes the challenge is that we feel unnoticed because the answer doesn't come right away. We might pray and pray again, but nothing seems to change. And in that waiting, it's easy to doubt whether God is listening at all. But remember this, God's attentiveness isn't measured by how quickly he acts. It's measured by the depth of his care. He hears every single prayer, even the ones you think are too small, too insignificant, or too messy to matter. Consider a mother watching her child at school. The child might be struggling with homework or facing a problem on the playground. Even from a distance, the mother hears the frustration in their voice, senses the confusion in their body language, and feels their worry. That same attentiveness applies to God, but infinitely more powerful. He hears your inner heart, the unspoken cries, the prayers you don't even know how to form. Nothing is too hidden or too quiet for him to notice. Hearing, though, is only part of it. God doesn't just listen passively, he responds. Sometimes the response is immediate, sometimes it's delayed, but it's always perfectly timed. Every prayer you lift is stored in his hands, and he is actively moving in ways you may not see yet. It's like planting a seed. You water it, you care for it, but the growth happens under the soil, out of sight. God's answer is growing in his timing, perfectly aligned with your life, even if you can't yet see it. And here's the encouragement: your cry matters. Your prayers are not wasted. Every night you spend on your knees, every quiet moment where you reach out to God, every time your heart whispers for help, he is listening. He is fully aware of the details, fully aware of the urgency, and fully capable of bringing change. Your cries are powerful because they reach the ears of the Almighty, and he is already working a solution before you even finish speaking. So if today you feel unheard, misunderstood, or invisible, remember this: God hears you. He listens to the unspoken words, the tears that fall in silence, the heartaches that never make it to anyone else's ears. Your voice reaches him in a way it reaches no one else. And he is not only listening, he is acting, preparing, and orchestrating what's best for you. Take comfort in knowing that your cries matter, your prayers matter, and your heart. You are heard by the one who holds the universe in his hands, and nothing you say or feel escapes his notice. Surrender doesn't mean doing nothing. Many people misunderstand what it means to surrender to God. When we hear the word surrender, we often think it means sitting back, doing nothing, and waiting passively for life to change. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Surrender isn't laziness. It's not giving up on your responsibilities or abandoning your efforts. True surrender is an active choice. It's a deliberate decision to trust God's timing, wisdom, and plan while still doing your part in the process. Think about it like driving a car. You control the steering wheel, the brakes, and the gas pedal, but you can't control every obstacle on the road. Traffic, weather, or unexpected detours are out of your hands. Surrendering to God is similar. You do what you can, make wise decisions, work hard, pray diligently, but you release the things you cannot control. You stop trying to force outcomes and instead trust that God is guiding the journey, even when you can't see the full path ahead. Another way to look at it is through gardening. You plant the seeds, water the soil, and give the plant sunlight. You do all the work within your power, but you can't make the plant grow instantly. No matter how hard you try, growth happens in its own time. Surrender is trusting that God is tending the garden, working behind the scenes, and bringing results according to his perfect timing. You've done your part, and now you leave the rest in his hands. Surrender also frees you from the weight of anxiety and frustration. When you try to control everything, your career, your relationships, your health, you carry an unbearable burden. Every delay, every setback, every unanswered prayer feels like a personal failure. But when you surrender, you stop striving to force outcomes. You stop obsessing over timelines. You learn to do your part faithfully and then release the results to God. That release doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you recognize that the ultimate outcome is His responsibility, not yours. A real-life example might be someone applying for a job they desperately need. They update their resume, practice their interviews, and network with intention. But after sending out applications, they surrender the result to God instead of obsessing over every call or email. They trust that if it's His will, the right opportunity will come, and if not, He has a better plan they cannot yet see. This doesn't mean they stop applying or preparing. It means they stop letting anxiety control them and trust God's timing. Surrender also builds faith. Every time you release control and trust God, you're telling Him, I believe you see this, and I believe you are working for my good. Each small act of surrender strengthens your confidence that God is in control. You may not understand the timing, the method, or even the outcome, but you know the one holding it all does. So remember, surrender isn't doing nothing, it's doing your part fully and faithfully while trusting God to handle the rest. It's letting go of the pressure to control everything and instead leaning into His wisdom, His timing, and His plan. When you surrender in this way, you discover freedom, peace, and the confidence that God is working on your behalf, even when you can't yet see the results. Your role is to act faithfully, pray earnestly, and trust completely. God's role is to bring the outcome. When these two work together, your obedience and His sovereignty, life begins to unfold in ways you could never orchestrate on your own. Surrender is not the end of action, it's the beginning of trust. Trust His timing. One of the hardest lessons to learn in life is trusting God's timing. We live in a world that moves fast, where instant results are expected, and waiting feels like a punishment. Yet God operates on a completely different timeline, one that is perfect, precise, and often unseen until the moment of fulfillment. Understanding and trusting His timing is essential, because even when it seems like nothing is happening, growth and change are quietly taking place behind the scenes. Think about it like this. If you go to the gym, you don't expect to lift heavier weights or see muscles develop overnight. You put in the work, lifting, sweating, pushing your limits, day after day. Some days you feel stronger, some days weaker, but the visible results take time. You may not notice progress week to week, yet your body is changing in ways you cannot immediately see. That's exactly how God works in our lives. He's planting seeds, building strength, and orchestrating circumstances even when we feel like nothing is moving. The waiting period is not wasted time, it's preparation. God is shaping your character, teaching you patience, refining your faith, and positioning you for the blessings that are coming. Sometimes we become frustrated because we focus solely on the visible outcome, not realizing that the unseen work is equally, if not more, important. Just like muscles grow under the surface, your heart, mind, and spirit are developing in preparation for what God has planned. It's also worth remembering that our timing is often flawed. We want answers when we are ready, solutions when we are comfortable, and breakthroughs on our schedule. God, however, sees the bigger picture. He knows what we need, when we need it, and how best to deliver it. His timing may feel delayed, but it is always perfect. When you trust Him, you can rest in the knowledge that the delay is not denial. It's a necessary step toward a greater outcome than you could imagine. Think about a farmer planting seeds. After planting, they water the soil and wait patiently. They cannot rush the growth of the plants. Rain comes when it's needed, sunlight nurtures the roots, and eventually the crops flourish. If the farmer tried to force growth, pulling plants too early or overwatering, the results would be disastrous. Trusting God's timing works the same way. You can do your part, pray, act, prepare, but the results unfold according to His perfect plan. A real-life example could be someone waiting for a promotion at work. They've been consistent, worked hard, and prayed fervently, yet the recognition hasn't come. In frustration, it's easy to feel overlooked or question whether their effort matters. But God sees the bigger picture. Maybe He's preparing them for a position even better than the one they envisioned. Or maybe He's developing skills and patience that will serve them in ways they cannot yet comprehend. The key is to trust that growth and preparation are happening even if the reward isn't visible yet. Trusting God's timing also brings peace. When you stop trying to rush outcomes and start leaning on Him, anxiety diminishes. You stop obsessing over every delay or missed opportunity and begin to rest in the confidence that God's plan is unfolding exactly as it should. Your role is to stay faithful, persistent, and obedient. His role is to orchestrate the outcome in the perfect moment. So remember, even when it feels like nothing is happening, God is at work. Growth is occurring. Breakthroughs are forming, and seeds you've planted are being nurtured in ways you cannot yet see. Trust His timing. His clock is never late. His plan is never flawed, and His results are always worth the wait. Just like the gains at the gym, the results will come. Stronger, more resilient, and perfectly timed according to God's wisdom. God works behind the scenes. One of the most comforting truths in life is that God is always at work, even when we can't see it. While you sleep, while you wait, while it feels like nothing is happening, God is moving pieces you don't even notice. He's crafting solutions, opening doors, and arranging circumstances in ways you couldn't have imagined. Sometimes the greatest miracles are happening quietly, behind the scenes, long before they become visible in your life. Think about it like a stage production. The audience only sees the actors performing on stage, but there's an entire crew working behind the curtains, lighting, sound, props, and direction, ensuring that the show goes perfectly. You don't see the countless hours, the preparation, the adjustments made in secret, yet all of it is essential for the performance to succeed. God works in the same way. He's moving in your life behind the scenes, arranging details, preparing people, and positioning opportunities in ways you cannot yet understand. Sometimes the unseen work can feel frustrating because you're anxious for visible results. You've prayed, you've acted, you've waited, and it feels like nothing is happening. But God's timing and methods are often invisible at first. Just like a gardener doesn't see the roots growing under the soil, God is growing your faith, strengthening your character, and preparing breakthroughs in ways that cannot be rushed. Everything happening behind the scenes is purposeful, even if it doesn't make sense to you yet. A real-life example might be a student waiting for college acceptance or promotion at work. They submit their applications, they wait, and every day feels like a test of patience. They may never know all the phone calls, decisions, and planning happening on the other side, working toward their ultimate opportunity. God is orchestrating your life in the same way. The pieces you don't see, people being prepared, resources being readied, doors being opened quietly, are all part of His plan. Even in moments of disappointment or delay, God is still at work. He can turn setbacks into setups, trials into triumphs, and pain into purpose. The situations that feel like obstacles today might be the exact things God is using to position you for a greater blessing tomorrow. Trusting Him means believing that the invisible work is just as important as what you see, and that every small step, every delay, every waiting period is part of His perfect orchestration. Consider your life like a puzzle. You see only a few pieces at a time. The picture seems incomplete, confusing, or even chaotic. But God sees the full image. He knows where every piece fits, and He is carefully placing each one to create the masterpiece that is your life. Sometimes it takes months or years before you step back and see the full picture, but every hidden move was necessary to get you to that moment. So when you feel like nothing is happening, remember that God is always working. You may not see it, you may not feel it, but the evidence of His work will reveal itself in time. He is positioning you, preparing the way, and orchestrating outcomes that surpass what you could ever plan or imagine. Your job is to remain faithful, to keep trusting, and to keep moving forward, knowing that the unseen work is just as real and just as powerful as what eventually becomes visible. God's behind-the-scenes work is a reminder that you are never alone, never forgotten, and never without hope. While you wait, He works. While you sleep, He plans. While you wonder, He moves. And when the time is right, all of His quiet preparation will unfold in a way that leaves you amazed, grateful, and fully aware that He has been with you every step of the way. Faith moves mountains. One of the most powerful truths in the life of a believer is that faith moves mountains, not just metaphorical mountains, But the real obstacles that feel impossible to overcome, debt, heartbreak, fear, anxiety, broken relationships, or dreams that seem out of reach. When you fully trust God, when you step out in genuine belief, these mountains begin to shift. Faith is not a vague hope or wishful thinking. Faith is the confident assurance that God is already at work, long before you see the results. Think about it like this. When you're at the gym trying to lift a heavy weight, the first attempt might feel impossible. Your muscles strain, your mind doubts, and it seems like the weight will never budge. But as you persist, as you adjust your technique, as you apply consistent effort, the weight starts to move. Faith works the same way. It's a consistent trust in God's power, applied in your life, even when the obstacles look immovable. You act in alignment with His Word, you speak His promises, you believe in His timing, and slowly but surely the mountain begins to shift. Faith is knowing that God has already taken care of your situation. It's not about pushing harder, worrying more, or forcing outcomes. It's about aligning your heart and your actions with His will and believing that what seems impossible to you is already being handled in heaven. Every tear you shed, every prayer you lift, every act of obedience is part of building that faith. The more you trust, the stronger your faith becomes, and the more mountains begin to move. Consider a real-life example. Someone drowning in debt, feeling trapped and hopeless, begins to step out in faith. They pray, they budget, they look for opportunities, but they also believe God will provide. Months later, unexpected resources, new opportunities, or even divine connections start appearing, things they couldn't have orchestrated on their own. Faith doesn't change the reality overnight. It changes your connection to God and opens the door for Him to work. That's how mountains move. Faith also changes your perspective. When you see a challenge not as a dead end, but as an opportunity for God's power to manifest, it transforms your attitude. Fear and worry lose their grip. Anxiety gives way to trust. You start speaking life over your situation instead of despair. You stop focusing on the size of the mountain and start focusing on the greatness of the one who holds your life in His hands. It's important to remember that faith isn't passive. You don't sit back and do nothing while expecting miracles to fall from the sky. Faith is active. It obeys, it perseveres, it prays, and it believes. Every step you take in faith, every word you speak in alignment with God's promises, pushes the mountain slightly closer to shifting. And even when the change is gradual, each movement builds momentum until what once seemed impossible becomes reality. So whatever mountain you're facing today, whether it's financial strain, a broken relationship, a health issue, or a dream delayed, know this. Faith works. Faith connects you to God's power. Faith shifts the immovable. It starts with believing that God is already at work, that He sees your struggle, and that He hears your prayers. When you step out in faith, even when the mountain looks huge and unyielding, you will begin to see movement. Remember, faith isn't hoping, it's knowing. It's knowing that God is in control, that He is faithful, and that He is already orchestrating the outcome for your good. Mountains in your life don't stand a chance when you fully trust Him. So plant your feet, speak His promises, believe in His timing, and watch as the impossible starts to shift before your eyes. Keep praying and watch. One of the most important lessons in walking with God is learning to be consistent in prayer. Life can be unpredictable. Circumstances can feel overwhelming, and the answers we hope for may seem delayed. But this is exactly the time to keep lifting your voice. Keep praying. Keep believing. God hears every word you speak, even when the results aren't immediate. The key is persistence, faith, and trust in His timing. Think about it like training for a marathon. You don't wake up one day, run a few miles, and suddenly cross the finish line. It takes consistent effort, day after day, building endurance, pushing through discomfort, and trusting that the progress is happening even if you can't see it immediately. Prayer works the same way. Every time you bring your concerns, fears, and desires before God, you're planting seeds. You may not see the fruits right away, but those seeds are growing, being nourished by your faith in God's power. Sometimes we get discouraged because we don't hear an immediate answer or see an instant change. Maybe you've been praying about finances, a relationship, your health, or a long-held dream, and it feels like your prayers are bouncing off the ceiling. That's when most people give up. But God's work is not limited to our perception of time. He is always active, always listening, and always orchestrating circumstances to bring about His perfect plan. What feels like delay is often preparation. It's the unseen work, the quiet arranging of blessings, and the refining of your faith. Here's a relatable example. Consider someone who waters their plants faithfully every day. They see no immediate change. The soil looks the same, the plant seems unchanged, and yet beneath the surface the roots are growing, leaves are forming, and life is taking shape. When the first buds finally appear, it feels like magic, but it's actually the result of consistent care over time. Prayer works the same way. Even when nothing seems to change, God is listening, moving, and preparing your breakthrough in ways you cannot yet see. Consistency in prayer also strengthens your faith. Every time you choose to pray despite doubt, disappointment, or delay, you are telling God, I trust you. I believe you are working. That act of faith strengthens your heart and aligns your mind with His will. You begin to recognize that prayer is not just about asking, it's about connecting, surrendering, and trusting that God is bigger than your problems. And remember, prayer isn't always about speaking long words or repeating formulas. Sometimes it's a whisper in the quiet of your heart, a simple "Lord, help me," or even just a sigh of surrender. God hears it all. He is attentive to every cry, every plea, every word spoken in honesty and faith. So keep lifting your voice. Don't stop when the answers seem delayed. Keep praying, keep believing, and keep trusting that God is at work. Watch how situations begin to change. People start to move, doors open, and circumstances shift in ways that confirm He has been listening all along. Your persistence in prayer is not wasted. It's part of the process of receiving His promises. The act of continued prayer also prepares you to receive. When the answer comes, you are ready to recognize it, embrace it, and act on it. Your faith has grown, your patience is strengthened, and your heart is aligned with God's plan. Remember this: God is not deaf, He is not distant, and He is never unaware. Every prayer you lift, every word you speak in faith is heard and recorded. Keep praying. Keep believing, and watch as the impossible begins to unfold, as your mountains shift, and as your life testifies to the faithfulness of God who hears, sees, and moves on your behalf. Here's the truth. You don't have to carry it all on your own. Life can feel heavy, full of pain, struggles, disappointments, and unanswered questions, but God sees every part of it. He notices your tears, hears your prayers, and understands the weight on your heart. And the most incredible part is that He is already at work, even before you fully trust Him to handle your situation. Step back for a moment and take a deep breath. Imagine placing every worry, every fear, every unanswered question into His hands. Feel the relief of knowing that you no longer have to control the outcome, that the burden of making everything happen is no longer yours to carry. God's timing, His wisdom, and His power are far greater than yours, and when you let go, you allow Him to work freely on your behalf. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is also the most powerful. Trust God completely. Trust Him with your finances, your relationships, your health, and your dreams. Trust Him with the things that seem impossible to fix on your own. When you surrender fully, when you stop trying to force solutions or control outcomes, you make room for God to show up in ways that exceed your expectation. And here's the beautiful promise: what once felt impossible begins to fall into place. Mountains move, doors open, burdens lift, and answers arrive in ways you could never have orchestrated. Your faith grows stronger, your heart finds peace, and your life begins to reflect the power and faithfulness of a God who sees, who hears, and who acts. So today, let go. Step back. Leave it in God's hands. Watch, believe, and be amazed at how He turns your struggles into victories, your pain into purpose, and your prayers into powerful testimonies. Trust Him fully, because He is more than able to handle what you cannot.